spend a moment here in spite of the eye strain that you all are going to experience, because this is a pretty telling slide on why the best of intentions and the best of change initiatives do not really go on to fulfill their promise. You look at what we think is very important and how effective it is. That's what this slide is showing. So all the leaders surveyed say that what is most important for your change and what are the factors that are going to work for you to implement the change. The leadership alignment with change is rated as, by 88% of the companies, as really, really important. How effective is it? 42% say it's effective. Communication is rated as the second most important thing. How effective is it? It's 36%. Stakeholder involvement is 64%. How effective? It's 29%. The gap on leadership alignment with change and communication, and hence, when we were partnering with BIMTECH, we were like, this is an area we are very passionate about because it's transformation, but not transformation because it's nice to do or good to do, but it's about people like us in this room here on leaders and how aligned we are with the change. So it is about leadership and the transformation that we bring about in our lives and in the organizations. And these two are the most telling gaps, the leadership alignment and communication. This survey tellingly demonstrates that while we all agree that this is most important, this is where the biggest gap is. And if this is the case, what could be the damages to a company? And ineffective change management has significant impact on employee engagement, on performance, and on the speed of achieving your desired outcomes. Research across many years and various of our surveys have shown that with almost any major restructuring, any major change initiative, so to speak, the actual productivity loss, the employee engagement dips that happen is insurmountable. It takes organizations many years to catch up, and sometimes it's actually left behind forever. What we've seen is that how do you really work at getting it right? So I know most of you are like, we know, we've been through all this, and yeah, we got it right in our organizations, we haven't got it right in our organizations, some things work. So what's new? So even we were equally curious at AON Hewit, and we said, let's really find out about how have some organizations genuinely transformed and what does it take for them to make this transformation. We conduct a study called the Top Companies for Leaders. And the Top Companies for Leaders is a global study which looks at organizations which have across years consistently done better than their competitors, and not just from a business perspective outdone their competitors and done better and given huge returns to their shareholders, but in many ways have actually transformed the way they do businesses as well and transformed the way they engage with the community around. So I'm going to take you through some stories in the course of our consulting journey, and being at AON Hewit, that's a luxury that you have, that we've actually got to interact and meet and get some sound bites which we could use to share with you. So let me take the case of IBM. IBM, we all know, was almost in the brink of bankruptcy, actually shutting down. And between 93 to 2002, if you look at, the market cap grew from 30 billion to 173 billion. How did that happen? It was a process of extremely integrated, many small things coming together. So what was the transformation? One, that it was not about doing what was always right, but yes, if we've been into various, and if that was working in the past, it's no longer going to work. So actually doing away with saying that we will have various SBUs because that's how we used to work, but getting one integrated organization right. The organization began rewarding teamwork and put an end to consensus building. Every employee had to make personal business commitments on what will be the actions I take to align there. People were getting rewarded for getting things done fast. It was no longer about obsessive perfectionism and studying things to death. There was a competency model outlined saying this is what it will take for us to succeed, and we need people who are willing to align to this competency model. It was about saying that we need each and everyone in it. You need to be with us to take this company through. The interesting story about Louis Gessner and making the elephant dance is that while he came in from the outside, and it was a leader who was brought in because the company was actually on the brink of bankruptcy, the leader needed to transform. How did you make it sustainable, and how do you, over the years, ensure that the company today it's 100 billion plus, and how do you ensure that kind of continuity and success? The CEO today is Virginia Rometty, who started out as an MT in 1982. So while you might bring in a leader from the outside, and you need to ensure that that kind of transformation happens, and that is, I mean, you're on the brink of death and you need to bring in somebody, and then it's not about that one-off act and that one change that will change the destiny of the company. It's about how do you make it sustainable, and how do you ensure that's now wired into your DNA. Today, IBM is number 1 in the AON Hewit list of top companies for leaders. Virginia Rometty says that, I mean, from many angles, it's more than just saying that there's diversity. They ensure that they're a truly global company. Their leaders are from across every geography that they represent. And Virginia Rometty says that, how can I not be passionate about developing the next line? Because I was a management trainee who was chosen and built from the ranks. Now, if this sounds pretty far-fetched and many continents away, let me take a case study of a company closer home. How many of you read today's corporate dossier? Great, so we don't have too many, so I'll take you through the story. But if you do get a chance, do read, because that's, again, an amazing case study of a company. This is Hindustan Unilever. And in 2008, with a 51,000 turnover in sales, today, Nitin Paranspe leaves the company behind at 143,000 plus. The market capitalization has increased by 180%. The company passionately and maniacally focused on executing the 5 strategic shifts. They said, we cannot be the behemoth we were. We have to ensure we get digital. We cannot be going and selling the old ways that we did. We need to embrace that change. We have to be seen as much faster to respond. We've been a great brand. We are great. Yes, everyone knows HLL, but it doesn't matter anymore. It is about how contemporary we are today. The other thing is that you always made products which you knew was for the household and you knew was getting sold. But they said, you know what, we haven't got our own diversity quotient right internally. And that was a bold statement to make in the public, saying that yes, while most of our products cater to the housewife, we don't have enough women in our organization. To actually put that stake out, saying in the next 5 years, we will increase representation of women by 50% in our organization, was a huge stake to lay, and championing of diversity became a huge change agenda. It's been a consistent and profitable growth. Nitin Paranspe started out as an MT. Today, he hands over to another seasoned veteran who's been very much part of the lever system. As a leader who's grown from within, he says, the only thing I was taught is that at every level, you have to re-earn your stripes. And so it was about, as leaders, it's a point of view we have about the future. We cannot continue to grow using the same model that we have used in the past. So we are great, we are good, we are doing very well. That doesn't matter anymore. It is how can we change and how can we get better and how much more can we do. If this also sounds like fine, good to do, but you know, at the end of the day, it is a multinational company and they must have had enough muscle. Let me take you to a third example of something really close home. Let me take you through a quick case study of the Aditya Birla Group, which is a huge conglomerate today and which has increased from 2 billion in 1997 for turnover to 40 billion in 2012. So this was, you know, sometimes just like leadership, change happens to you or change is thrust upon you or you become victims in the process of change. But Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla says that, yeah, it was thrust upon him. He had no choice but to take mantle due to a very unfortunate and sudden event. But what they were passionate about is, in their case, they said, we don't have the luxury of building talent. We don't have that time, and we would have loved to. Yes, we admired the task system, and the Tatas have a great way of in which they have nurtured. What we will have to do is we may have to aggressively go out and buy talent. And that was a strategy they took, saying that, okay, we will bring in leaders from the outside for each of our businesses. But the leaders from outside, many companies will bring in, and that is actually one of the biggest costs that companies take, because the cultural shift of the new leader and the ability to assimilate the new leader is a big challenge, and many organizations go wrong. You will see them hiring some of the best names who was very successful in some other company, And then after 2 years saying, you know what, it just didn't work out for us. But what the Aditya Birla Group did very, very actively and passionately is they assimilated these new leaders into what we want to be. They said, you know, some things might even have to be ritualistic, so we'll do it. We will change our logo. Our logo will represent the new us. Today, this organization, with an employee base of more than 130,000, has 42 nationalities. It's in over 50% of ABG resources come from overseas. And the beauty is that it's no longer a commodities company. It's less than 50% that commodities contribute. It has moved hugely into the services sector. So the transformation has been immense in just from who we were to what we've become. It is an Indian transnational in the truest sense, and they have a representation across the globe. They have employees representing each of the countries they operate in, and their businesses have completely changed, and the businesses has dramatically changed from what it was in '97. So what did they do? It was really about assimilating leaders very well. It was about being passionate, about being seen as an Indian transnational firm. It was about saying that we need to, even if it is how we look, we'll change how we look. We will have a new logo to represent the new us. It was on focusing on opportunities for the business, understanding current needs, assessing the change, and then, as Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla says, he says, how much we have changed, however much we have changed, we continue to constantly reinvent ourselves. Because that alone won't be enough. And this is, he says, we have to keep reinventing. He maintains a personal dossier of 200 new people who have joined the firm at senior levels and just looks at the first 90 days and how well have they integrated in. So these companies or examples were cases of real transformation. And the one thing that was common was that they didn't let change just happen. It was actively led and managed. And it's no coincidence that all three companies were in our top 10 of top companies for leaders. So what is it in this top companies for leaders that we learned? One, the big truth is leaders lead the way. So if you saw the big gap in the misalignment was that the leadership alignment, it's most important, but it's the least effective. In these organizations, leaders led the way. Many of these leaders went for personal coaching themselves. They actively worked on what the transformation should look like, and they actively lived the fact that it's not that we are transformed. We need to continuously keep looking at what can we do to keep getting better. The second truth is that there's been an unrelenting focus on talent, which means that just because you were good in your previous job, it's not enough. It is now ground zero again. So all that you knew before for that job is over. Now what is the new skill sets you can learn? So there is this huge thing about how much can you unlearn and relearn, because that is what will help us get to the next level. So at every level, you're reassessed. There are practical and aligned programs and practices. We noticed 3-4 things that are common. The 3 competencies which were common across all these companies were that delivering results was something which all of them were maniacally focused on. Teamwork or collaboration was a must. We wanted people who can actually work around, work with, and get the best out of each other. It's not a competitive win-lose. It is about getting the best out of each other. And it is about leaders who can manage the change. Because these 3 competencies in all these companies were pretty much present across, saying that we've articulated this as our DNA. We will need leaders who can actually role model these competencies. And then lastly, when leadership becomes a discipline, so each of them have passionately and in their top team and the leaders below looked at how can you make this sustainable now. So it is not about what was good then and we've changed and now we've moved and now let's sit back. Yes, we should pat ourselves in the back and we can applaud, but there's much more to go. And whatever we've done needs to be sustainable over the years that comes. And how much are we going to continue now looking at giving back to the community? So if you do go through today's corporate dossier, please do. There's a huge passion of levers on saying that now it's not just about saying, yeah, we can sell soaps, but can we really add to the health of the community that we operate in, and how can we contribute back there? So they've ensured that these leadership truths have now got integrated into the DNA. And what we've noticed over the years is that the ranking slips maybe between 1 or 2 points, But somehow these are the usual suspects in the top 10, that they're always there because they ensure that a CEO can come and go, but that discipline of ensuring that we are constantly looking at how can we get better has got ingrained in the firm. So just some statistics that one, senior leaders actually, if they are talking about a change and they're talking about transformation, they lead it themselves. So they say whether it is in our organizational life or whether it's in our personal life, we say we will take up one thing. Some of the leaders in these companies are encouraged to actually publish their 360 report and put it up on the board. So leaders lead the way saying, listen, this is how I look, and I actively need all of you all to support me in how am I going to change. I'm going to get coached on these two things that are really looking ugly on my 360, but I need you to help me, and they will lead it by actually publishing their 360. There's an unrelenting focus, which means that every time it will be about, fine, you were great in your previous role, now tell me what are the new skill sets and what is the value you can add to your new role. So every time you get promoted, it's back to ground zero. Practical and aligned programs, there is a lot of transparency on what will it take to succeed here. This is the competencies that work for us. We will need you to ensure that you embrace them. And this is about, if change management is so important, please show us how well you will respond and work and manage and actually implement that, because that's core to who we are and how we can succeed here. And it's totally a discipline. So when you hear a Virginia Rometty saying that, why will I not do it? Because when I joined as a management trainee and every 2 years I was told, how can I get better? And that's the kind of investment I got from senior leaders. Why will I not give back to the system? So it's now very ingrained in who we are and how we work that we will ensure that we continue giving back exactly how we got and more. So while this was all about organizations and this was about how the businesses transformed and from X billion they went to X plus plus billion, the truth is that it's not just about organization, and we know that changes happen at individual levels, and most problems actually, or the most challenges occur at the individual behavioral level. So it is really not that, oh, my organization is not changing, it's the organization's problem, but it's also about each of us asking ourselves, when was the last time we did something for the first time? And while that was a very powerful campaign I borrowed the line from, I think it resonates very strongly on how much do we keep asking ourselves this. That if we could just think, step back and say, okay, when was the last time I did something for the first time? And just as I was traveling in the flight today, I had the privilege of a client sitting next to me, and they were talking about the success that one of their most recent ventures has made, which is Bhag Milkha Singh. How many of you have seen Bhag Milkha Bhag? Okay, much more than those who have read Corporate Dossier. So we said, okay, this is not just about business and this is not just about, what organizations do. But if you look at even what we call so-called, when we sit in rooms like this, we believe we are corporate and we are professionals. But when you even look at what celebrities or film stars need to do, Farhan Akhtar had to undergo a transformation. It was a complete transformation because it was getting out of your type to actually play and live a legend. And so at least, and it's not just about a behavioral change, which has to lead to that humongously huge physical change, but that's a transformation you have to make. So it's not change that somebody else has to do and I need to get on, but it's also each of us as leaders here, how are we leading or how are we really making change happen? And for each of us, it is that do we have a vision of what desired state looks like? And so not just having a vision of the desired state, but how do I begin? And how can I make that change happen? This is just a quick test. For those of us, you need to just help me identify each of the blocks. The critic. Okay, it's a good evening and cocktails are promised later. So let me suffer this and let me just look at, maybe there will be some interesting point I can write sometime. And the observer. Great. So you all have been a great audience, and I'm sure that there are many navigators here, but it's really for each of us. And it's not that, this is a tight compartment or this is a box, but as long as we are aware of what we've become and what we need to be. So it's really on how well are we, if nothing else is what we can control, how can we navigate and get on with it. But it's very important for us to really be aware of where are we currently and where do we want to be, and what is it that I need to change or begin by myself. So this is just my last 2 slides. At AON Hewit, what we are passionate about is saying that at every level, ask yourselves, at an organization and at an individual level, how have I changed my game? So for a frontline leader in the organization, maybe know-how and skills have the greatest impact on being effective. But as a leader moves into the middle management style, know-how and style becomes important, because it's your style sometimes that can be a big deterrent. Am I aware of my style? And for leaders who are at the top, it is style as well as a bandwidth. And what is bandwidth? Bandwidth is about, at my level, am I contributing appropriately? Have I the right things on my plate? While I've picked up many things, what have I let go? So at each level, you have to be looking at, have I assessed myself, and how am I developing to ensure that I am at the right bandwidth? So leaders, as leaders, we need to do different things at different levels to be effective. While we identify and develop talent, we also need to ensure that at different levels we put the puzzle together. Expecting the same across different levels or expecting everyone to be the same will not be possible. It will be like jazz music when each of us plays our part. This is just the last slide on our entire transformation model, where